You were not born into chaos. You were born into a system, quiet, efficient, and invisible, and it was designed long before you ever took your first breath. John D. Rockefeller did not merely build an empire of oil. He helped architect a way of life that still shapes how you work, think, consume, and obey. The unsettling question is not whether you benefit from it, but whether you can ever truly step outside it. Tonight, you are not here to learn history. You are here to feel a truth most people sense but cannot name. This video will explore how power hides in plain sight, how comfort becomes a cage, and how your choices may be narrower than you were led to believe. If this resonates, comment the phrase, "I see the system" below. Subscribe, like this video, and stay until the end, because there is a quiet realization waiting one that changes how you see your own freedom. At the turn of the industrial age, when faith in tradition collapsed and machines replaced meaning, a new logic of existence emerged. Efficiency over wisdom, productivity over purpose. Thinkers like Max Weber warned that modern life was becoming an iron cage, where rational systems trapped the human spirit while pretending to liberate it. It was in this psychological vacuum that figures like John D. Rockefeller rose, not as villains in the shadows, but as prophets of order in a chaotic world. The philosophy was simple and devastating. Standardize life, optimize behavior, and you can manage society like a machine. Over time, this logic was no longer questioned. It became normal. And that is why it feels invisible today. The wounds of our era, burnout, anxiety, emptiness, are not personal failures, but symptoms of a system that trained you to function, not to live. To understand the system you live in, you must first understand how a human being is shaped without ever being touched. The most powerful forms of control do not shout, they whisper. They do not command, they condition. What Rockefeller understood, perhaps more intuitively than consciously, is that if you control the structure of daily life, you never need to control people directly. Begin with time. Your days are divided, sliced into units, measured, sold, and exhausted. You wake up not when your body is ready, but when the system demands it. You work not according to meaning, but according to schedules designed for output. This was not accidental. The modern workday, the rigid clock, the idea that productivity equals virtue, these were psychological inventions before they were economic ones. When oil powered factories, factories required discipline, and discipline required humans who obeyed rhythms not their own. Over time, that discipline moved inside you. You feel guilt when you rest, anxiety when you are still, worthless when you are unproductive. That is the first layer of the system, internalized surveillance. You watch yourself so power does not have to. Now consider education. You were taught what to think before you were taught how to think. From an early age, you learned to sit still, raise your hand, follow instructions, and compete for approval. Creativity was allowed only within boundaries. Curiosity was rewarded only when it served a curriculum. This was not about knowledge. It was about predictability. A system built on industrial efficiency needs workers who can be trained, replaced, and standardized. Rockefeller famously invested heavily in shaping education not to create free minds, but functional ones. The goal was never ignorance, it was specialization. When you know one narrow thing, you depend on the system for everything else. Dependency is stability. Stability is control. Then comes money, the most misunderstood tool of all. You were taught that money represents freedom, but in practice, it represents obligation. Bills, debts, subscriptions, and survival costs quietly dictate your decisions. You do not ask what life you want, you ask what life you can afford. This shifts your psychology from creation to maintenance. You are no longer exploring existence, you are managing risk. Rockefeller understood that when people fear falling, they cling to whatever structure promises safety, even if that structure drains them slowly, even if it costs them their time, their health, their soul. The genius of the system is that it convinces you this is normal adulthood. Look at consumption. You are encouraged to desire endlessly, but never to be satisfied. Products promise identity, status, relief, and meaning. Yet, the relief fades quickly, requiring another purchase, another upgrade, another distraction. This is not accidental chaos. It is a feedback loop. Desire keeps you moving. Dissatisfaction keeps you obedient. A content person is unpredictable. An empty person is easy to guide. The system does not want you miserable. It wants you busy, chasing substitutes for fulfillment. That is far more efficient. Even your rebellions are often pre-approved. You are allowed to complain, to vent online, to mock authority, as long as it does not interrupt production. Anger that goes nowhere is harmless. Outrage that leads to no structural change is entertainment. The system absorbs resistance and turns it into content, clicks, and profit. You feel expressive, but nothing shifts. This creates a dangerous illusion of freedom. You believe you are awake because you criticize, yet your life remains unchanged. True freedom is not expression, it is autonomy. And autonomy threatens systems built on predictability. Psychologically, this produces a deep fracture inside you. On one side, there is a quiet longing for meaning, slowness, depth, and authenticity. On the other, there is constant pressure to perform, optimize, and keep up. This tension exhausts the nervous system. Burnout is not weakness. It is the body resisting a life that no longer makes sense. Anxiety is not irrational fear. It is awareness without direction. Depression is not laziness. It is the collapse that happens when effort no longer feels meaningful. Yet the system reframes these signals as personal defects. Medicate, adapt, cope, but never question the structure itself. Another key mechanism is fragmentation. Your life is split into roles: worker, consumer, citizen, profile, resume. Each role has rules, expectations, and masks. Rarely are you invited to be whole. Wholeness is dangerous because it allows you to see patterns. Fragmentation keeps you focused on immediate tasks, isolated from deeper understanding. You manage your calendar, your finances, your health, your image, but you rarely ask who benefits from this constant management. The answer is not hidden. It is simply uncomfortable. Rockefeller did not need to rule nations. He helped normalize a logic that life itself should be managed like a business. Efficiency became morality. Growth became virtue. Control became order. And order became safety. Over generations, this logic sank so deep that it no longer felt imposed, it felt natural. You defend it instinctively because your identity was built inside it. Questioning the system feels like questioning yourself. And here is the most unsettling part. The system does not require your belief. It only requires your participation. Even those who see it often feel trapped by it. You still need money. You still need food. You still need shelter. The system is not maintained by ignorance alone, but by necessity. That is why awakening is not a single moment. It is a slow, often painful process of seeing how deeply embedded these structures are in your habits, fears, and desires. You might ask yourself now, if this system is so powerful, so total, why does it feel increasingly unstable? Why does everything feel faster, louder, more fragile? Because systems built on endless growth eventually consume the humans inside them. When efficiency replaces wisdom, the human spirit becomes collateral damage. The system you cannot escape is also a system that cannot stop. And when a machine cannot stop, it eventually breaks something essential. This is where the unanswered question begins to form. If the system shapes your time, your work, your desires, and even your sense of self, then what part of you remains untouched? Where, if anywhere, does freedom still exist? The system does not want you asking that question. But now that you have felt its shape, once you have seen how quietly it operates inside you, you cannot unsee it. And what comes next is not rebellion, not escape, but something far more dangerous to control: awareness. Now that you can feel the architecture of the system, the next layer reveals something even more unsettling. The system survives not because it is imposed from above, but because it is desired from within. Power no longer needs chains when it can shape aspiration. This is where the ego becomes its most loyal enforcer. You are encouraged to dream, but only within predefined corridors. Success is narrowly framed. Achievement is measured externally. Recognition replaces fulfillment. The system teaches you to want what keeps it alive. And because desire feels personal, you defend it fiercely. You call it ambition. You call it responsibility. You call it realism. Rarely do you call it conditioning. The ego thrives in comparison. It needs ladders, rankings, and metrics. Who is ahead? Who is falling behind? Who is winning the invisible race? This constant comparison fragments solidarity and deepens isolation. You are not just tired. You are competing against an entire population for validation. The system benefits from this rivalry because divided individuals do not question shared structures. When you are busy proving your worth, you do not ask who defined worth in the first place. And when worth is defined by productivity and status, those who control the metrics control the narrative of meaning. There is a paradox here that few people dare to face. The system promises security, yet it produces chronic insecurity. You are never enough, never safe enough, never prepared enough. There is always another certification, another upgrade, another goalpost move just far enough to keep you running. This perpetual insufficiency fuels consumption and compliance. You stay alert, anxious, and dependent. Stillness would reveal the emptiness beneath the motion. So the motion must never stop. Modern freedom is presented as choice, but most choices are cosmetic. You can choose brands, lifestyles, identities, opinions, but rarely can you choose your relationship to time, to work, to value itself. You are free inside the cage, but not free from it. And because the cage is padded with comfort and distraction, many will defend it passionately. The idea of stepping outside feels terrifying. What would you be without schedules, titles, algorithms, and validation? The system does not just organize your life, it organizes your sense of self. Another illusion lies in the idea of progress. You are told that each generation is freer than the last, more advanced, more enlightened. Yet rates of anxiety, depression, and existential despair rise steadily. This contradiction is explained away with surface-level narratives, but the deeper truth is rarely touched. Progress without wisdom accelerates disorientation. When tools evolve faster than meaning, humans lose orientation. The system is brilliant at producing solutions while ignoring the question of why life feels increasingly unlivable. There is also the myth of neutrality. Systems present themselves as objective, rational, inevitable. But no system is neutral. Every structure privileges certain values while suppressing others. Efficiency suppresses slowness. Profit suppresses care. Growth suppresses balance. When these values dominate, qualities essential to human wholeness, presence, contemplation, connection are sidelined as unproductive. You begin to feel guilty for wanting a simpler life, a quieter rhythm, a deeper sense of being. The system labels these desires as unrealistic, immature, or lazy. In doing so, it severs you from your intuition. Consider how failure is framed. When something collapses in your life, you are told to fix yourself, work harder, adapt faster, optimize again. Structural pressure is reframed as personal weakness. This isolates suffering and prevents collective awareness. If everyone believes their exhaustion is unique, no one questions the common cause. The system survives by individualizing pain. It turns shared wounds into private shame. There is a subtle violence in this, not physical, but existential. Your inner life is colonized, your attention is harvested, your time is monetized. Even rest becomes instrumental, valued only for its ability to restore productivity. You do not rest to feel alive, you rest to work again. This inversion goes largely unnoticed because it is normalized. But normalization does not mean natural. It means repeated until unquestioned. Now, look at identity. You are encouraged to define yourself through roles and labels that are legible to the system. Job titles, social status, online personas. These identities are portable, measurable, and marketable, but they are fragile. Lose the role, and the identity collapses. This creates fear. Fear keeps you compliant. The system does not need to threaten you. It only needs to make you afraid of losing what it gave you. And because you invested your sense of self into these constructs, you protect them even when they drain you. There is also a deeper spiritual cost. When life is reduced to function, mystery disappears. When everything must be useful, nothing is sacred. The system cannot tolerate mystery because mystery cannot be optimized. It cannot tolerate transcendence because transcendence disrupts control. So meaning is flattened into goals, metrics, and outcomes. You are told to find purpose in achievement rather than in being. Over time, this hollows you out. You achieve more and feel less. You accumulate experiences and feel increasingly detached from them. The system also reshapes language. Words like freedom, success, and happiness are subtly redefined. Freedom becomes purchasing power. Success becomes visibility. Happiness becomes comfort. These definitions are convenient because they are measurable and profitable, but they are also shallow. When language is hollowed out, thought follows. You struggle to articulate what feels wrong because the words themselves have been compromised. This is not accidental, it is structural. A population that cannot name its suffering cannot challenge its cause. And yet, cracks appear. They appear in moments of silence, in burnout, in sudden grief, in the quiet realization that the life you built does not feel like yours. These moments are often treated as problems to be fixed quickly. Distract yourself, medicate, upgrade, move on. But these cracks are invitations. They are the psyche resisting a life that has become too small. The system calls this malfunction. The soul calls it awakening. Here is the uncomfortable truth. The system you cannot escape externally can be confronted internally. But this confrontation is not glamorous. It does not look like rebellion or withdrawal. It looks like disidentification. It looks like questioning desires you assumed were yours. It looks like tolerating uncertainty without rushing to replace it with noise. This is why so few do it. The ego hates emptiness, because emptiness reveals how much of it was constructed. The system fears nothing more than individuals who are internally free. Not because they overthrow it, but because they no longer depend on it for meaning. Such people still participate, but without illusion. They work without worshiping work, They consume without confusing consumption with identity. They rest without guilt. They see the game without believing it is life itself. This quiet independence is destabilizing to any structure built on psychological capture. You might now sense a tension growing inside you, a pull between familiarity and truth, between comfort and clarity. The system relies on you choosing comfort repeatedly, not once. You do not need to be enslaved, absolutely. You only need to return to the familiar when awareness becomes uncomfortable. This is how the system renews itself, generation after generation, not through force, but through fatigue. So, the deeper question is no longer who built the system. The deeper question is why you continue to carry it inside you. What fears keep you aligned with it? What identities depend on it? What would collapse if you truly saw through it? These are not questions to answer quickly. They are questions to live with. And in living with them, something subtle begins to shift. The system loses its totality. It becomes a structure you inhabit, not a truth you obey. What remains now is the practical confrontation. Awareness without integration becomes despair. Seeing the system without learning how to move within it consciously leads to paralysis. So the next step is not escape, but transformation. Not of the world first, but of how you relate to it. And that is where real leverage begins. If you have seen the system, the danger now is not ignorance, but overwhelm. Awareness without grounding can turn into cynicism or paralysis. So the first practice is deceptively simple. Reclaim your relationship with time, not by escaping schedules, but by puncturing them. Choose one small, non-negotiable daily window where nothing is optimized. No productivity goal, no self-improvement, no consumption. Sit, walk, breathe, or write without outcome. This trains your nervous system to experience existence without justification. At first, discomfort will surface restlessness, guilt, the urge to be useful. That discomfort is the system speaking through your body. Stay with it. Over time, you relearn that your value is not conditional. The second practice is desire interrogation. Several times a week, pause before a purchase, a commitment, or a goal, and ask yourself one quiet question. Who benefits if I want this? Do not answer quickly. Let the question linger. You will begin to notice how many desires are inherited, suggested, or subtly pressured into you. This does not mean rejecting all ambition. It means purifying it. When a desire remains after scrutiny, when it feels calm rather than urgent, you know it is closer to your own. This alone weakens the system's grip because it feeds on unexamined wanting. The third practice is identity loosening. You have been trained to introduce yourself through roles. What you do, what you produce, what you achieve. Begin creating private spaces where you are none of these things. No performance, no narrative. Journal without publishing. Think without sharing. Be without explaining. The system thrives on legibility. It wants to read you, categorize you, and predict you. Inner privacy restores sovereignty. You do not need to disappear from society. You need to disappear from constant self-display. This reduces comparison, anxiety, and the silent pressure to become an object. Next comes conscious participation. You cannot step outside the system entirely, but you can choose how deeply you identify with it. Work, but do not worship work. Use money, but do not confuse it with worth. Engage technology, but guard your attention like a scarce resource. Set clear boundaries around information intake. News, outrage, and endless analysis exhaust clarity. Choose depth over volume. One book, read slowly, reshapes you more than 100 opinions skimmed. Attention is the currency the system extracts most aggressively. Reclaiming it is an act of quiet resistance. Another essential practice is embodied awareness. The system lives not only in ideas, but in tension patterns, chronic tightness, shallow breathing, constant alertness. These are physical adaptations to an environment of pressure. Simple grounding practices matter. Slow breathing, deliberate movement, time in silence. Not to relax for productivity, but to re-inhabit your body. A person fully present in their body is harder to manipulate because they feel misalignment immediately. The body knows before the mind rationalizes. You must also confront fear directly. Ask yourself what you are afraid of losing if you step back psychologically. Status, security, approval, identity. Write these fears down. Not to eliminate them, but to see them clearly. Fear loses power when named. The system relies on vague anxiety, not specific fear. When fear becomes specific, it becomes negotiable. You can choose how much of your life you are willing to trade for safety. One of the most powerful shifts is redefining success privately. Decide what a good day means for you without external metrics. Peace, depth, honesty, presence. These qualities cannot be optimized, but they can be cultivated. Measure your life by alignment rather than accumulation. This recalibration does not make you passive, it makes you precise. You begin to invest energy where it actually nourishes you. Expect resistance not from the world first, but from yourself. Old habits will pull you back. The system is familiar. Familiarity feels safe even when it harms you slowly. When you notice yourself slipping into automatic patterns, do not attack yourself. Observe. Compassion is strategic. Shame drives you back into compliance. Awareness invites change. Finally, understand this. You do not awaken once. You awaken repeatedly. The system adapts. It rebrands. It offers new illusions. So this is not about purity or escape. It is about orientation. You learn to live with one foot in the structure and one foot in truth. You become fluent in the system without confusing it for reality. That is real power. When you live this way, something subtle happens. The system still exists, but it no longer defines you. You participate without being possessed. You move without being driven. You see the machine without mistaking it for life itself. And that is how inner freedom begins, not loudly, not heroically, but quietly, where no system can fully reach. You came here thinking this was a story about a man, about John D. Rockefeller and a distant past shaped by oil, money, and industry. But what you have really been facing is a mirror. The system he helped normalize did not survive because it was perfect. It survived because it learned how to live inside you. It taught you to measure your worth, to fear stillness, to confuse motion with meaning, and to mistake survival for life. And once a system becomes internal, it no longer needs to dominate from the outside. You carry it forward yourself, day after day, choice after choice. The most unsettling realization is this: the system is not evil in the dramatic sense. It is efficient. And efficiency, when separated from wisdom, slowly erodes the soul. You were never meant to be a machine optimized for output. You were meant to be a conscious being capable of depth, presence, and inner sovereignty. The exhaustion you feel is not a personal failure. It is a signal. The quiet dissatisfaction is not ingratitude. It is perception waking up. Something in you has always known that life reduced to function is not life at all. Freedom, then, is not about tearing everything down or fleeing society. It is about no longer confusing the structure with truth. You can work without being owned by work. You can use money without letting it define you. You can participate without surrendering your inner axis. This is not rebellion, it is maturity. It is the shift from being managed by the system to managing your relationship with it. Now, the question that remains is not whether you see the system. You do. The real question is whether you will continue to live as if it is the only reality available to you. What would change if you stopped proving your worth? If you slowed down without apology? If you trusted that meaning does not come from optimization, but from alignment? If this video resonated, leave a comment with the phrase, "I see the system," so others know they are not alone in this awareness. Like the video, subscribe, and stay close to this channel, because what we explore here is not comfort, it is clarity. And clarity, once felt, can never truly be taken away.